Computer-aided drafting students. This is Mr. Voigt. Um, we have gone over in class how to log into Autodesk AutoCAD, and I've probably given you a few of your introductory lessons, but I'm going to put videos up over different chapters and different skills that you need to know, just in case you forget some of the details. I forget a lot of times, like I generally know how to do something, but I forget where this different command is in my ribbon or which tab I got to be on to get to the command and things like that, or what order to hit do certain things in. They're not really hard once you get those things down, but there's a lot of little things to remember. If you don't use this every day and it doesn't become second nature, then it takes a little bit of time to learn. Uh, anyway, so that's what these videos are for. Use them as you wish, fast forward, reverse through them, you know, so forth. But I want them there as a resource, and especially like if you miss class, they can be helpful. So um, I hope you remember I should have covered some of the stuff in class if we're past the first day, but I'm going to go ahead and start again. Um, what I want us to understand is this is our blank screen. Now I have a white background right now and you have black. I will get to later how you can change that back and forth and change the color of your background. I'm just going to go ahead and work with the white right now. Just understand you can change it to white or leave it black or change it really to any other color you want. And I'll show you how to do that here a little bit later. But one first thing you need to understand is this is a grid. Here is my 0, 0 point. And so you guys have all in math class, in science class, used graphs, um, the x-axis going horizontal and the y-axis going vertical. And I can then put the grid on here by clicking down here. There's a whole bunch of modes you can be in down here. And when we're starting, you really want most of these off. See how they toggle on and off? And I don't want you getting a lot of them on because they can really make it hard to draw uh, if you have the wrong things on. They also are there because they make it easier to draw once you know what they do. And while you're drawing, you're often going to have to toggle some of these on to help you draw something. And then if I leave it on, it'll make it harder to draw my next thing. So I got to turn it back off. So these are modes of that the drawing screen is in. So for instance, this is what we call ortho mode, and it will only let you draw lines that are 90 degrees to one another. So obviously that's pretty restrictive if you're drawing a lot of different things, but it can be really helpful if you need to find a really specific point and make sure that it's 90 degrees when you draw it. So there are times when that's really helpful. So you turn it on to do it something that you might need it for, and then you turn it back off by just toggling it off. Okay. Oops, I clicked something there. Um, these two are the ones we're looking at right now. Obviously, you can turn your grid on and off here. Most of the time when you start, people like to have the grid on. There are times and it'll be worth turning it off because it just mucks. There's so many lines it can muck things up and it's hard to find things. But I would leave it on to begin with. Okay. One thing you don't know, so there's a grid here. We assume that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can't assume that. Um, that could be 1/8, 1/4, 3/8, 1/2, right? You don't know what fractions these are set in. So you look at that by going to this little arrow right here and clicking it and going to snap settings. And it gives you this dialog box. Now there's a lot in here. There's a lot of tabs right here. We're going to get into those later, but you're going to go to this a lot. Right now my grid spacing is at 1/2 of an inch. Tells you right there, grid spacing. So each one of these boxes is 1/2 an inch each direction, right? Snap. I haven't talked about snap yet, but our snap right now is set at 1/2 an inch as well. I'm going to talk to you about that right now. So I'm just going to leave these, but there are certain times that setting these at different increments will be helpful. And often on our drawings, it's printed right on the front. Suggestions. You don't have to follow the suggestions on the drawing sheets that I give you, but they often will make things easier. Like I said, there's more than one way to draw almost everything when you get on these programs, but you really have to understand what you're doing. So we're going to leave these both at 1/2 of an inch. Okay. What snap is. So if I click this, see how it's toggled off right now? It says snap mode. I'm going to toggle it on. Doesn't look like anything different until I get into a command up here. So these are modes of drawing. These are things that the screen will do. These are what I'm going to try to draw. So if I'm going to draw a line or I'm going to draw a circle, or I'm going to draw an arc. And then once I get my, so these are my draw commands. These are commands I use to draw things. Once something is drawn, I can then manipulate that geometry using my modify commands. And I'll show you those. So you draw something, then you can modify what you've drawn. And then this obviously annotation is text. So we'll get to these later. We will get to layers as well. I don't want to talk about that stuff right now. I just want to do my draw commands. So what I'm going to do when I get into a command, I'm just going to get into a rectangle command here. And now look, see how those crosshairs snap to those corners? That is snap. So now, because I have it set at a half an inch, it only snaps to the corners. So if I come down here and I'm going to reset my snap now. So if I reset my snap to a quarter of an inch, and when I put a quarter in there and see how it automatically changes it there, and then I have to hit OK. So now my snap is at a quarter inch, but my grid is still at a half an inch. And now watch. Now I went out of my command, so I'm going to go get back into my command. And you see how it snaps right between the lines, exactly halfway between the lines, and then right on the corners. So now I have on each one, I have nine, on each square, I have 9 points I can snap to. Whereas when I was on a half of an inch, I only had the corners. I had 4 points I could snap to. So that can be really, because it's really hard. If I have snap off, how do I know I'm right in the middle of that? You don't. You can come close just by looking at it, but you don't know. Okay. All right. So where this is my 0, 0 point in absolute coordinates, that's my 0, 0 point. And there's a couple different ways to draw here. So I want you to remember your snap and your grid. Okay. Um, I want to show you something else really easy here. So if let's just say I draw something, I'm not going to worry about, I'll go ahead and turn my snap on, but I'm not going to worry about the size of it right now. I'm just going to draw a couple of these. Uh, couple of rectangles, okay? Um, what if I messed up? One thing you can do, uh, and if here, gosh darn it, I want to hide that. Do you see down here in my command line? This is giving me instructions. So it says rectangle, specify the first corner. See, I'm still in a rectangle command. It allows me to draw a rectangle, and then if I hit the space bar, I'm still in the command. So what happens is I click one of these commands up here, I execute it, and then it takes me out of it. I'm not able to draw a rectangle right here, but if I hit the space bar just once, now I'm back in the command, right? So after I draw it, see how I'm out of the command? And if I hit escape, now I'm out, right? I'm not in the command, although I hit the space bar and I'm back in it. So if I hit escape, I'm out of the command, hit space bar, I'm back in it. So it just toggles you out of the command. But if I hit the space bar, I go back in it. But if I hit escape, and if this is the escape button on the upper left-hand corner, if I hit it 2 times, now I hit my space bar. It's still taking me back in. Hmm, I did not know this. So I had just learned something. I thought if I hit my escape button twice, it took me 100% out of that command, and when I hit the space bar, it would not come back up down here, but it does. So once I get out of that command, if I hit the space bar, it's going to reinstitute my last command. So if I draw a line, see how I'm not in the line, but if I hit the space bar, it takes me right back to the line command, and I can go right back up and I can continue drawing. Okay. I did not know that. I thought if I hit escape twice, it got me out of the command. Hmm. So you just learned something with me. That might be new to this version as well. So I don't know. Anyway, that's how it works. And then did you see when I drew my lines? I draw one and it automatically puts me in position to draw another one. I can turn that off. That is an option that I have on, but I can turn that off. You also see down here that I have some numbers. These are the coordinates, the absolute coordinates of where I'm at. So this is 0, 0 right there And if these are half-inch increments, right, that'd be 1, that'd be 2, 3, 4. I don't want to get off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and a half, roughly. So if I hold that right there, see how down here I'm at about 12 and a half. So this is my absolute coordinates. Okay. And that may not be up on your screen, but if you come over here, this is everything that's showing down here. See how that has a check mark by it? So that can be really useful. So those are called absolute coordinates. And so when I draw here, I can know my absolute where my cursor is in absolute coordinates in relation to my 0, 0 point. So um, and then I'm going to hit escape. And if I hit my space bar, it takes me right back into the same command I was just in. Escape. Often though, to get out of a command so that you can get into something else, you hit escape 2 times. Okay. Um, so that you've cleared and then you can go get in another command and it won't mess up. Sometimes if you only hit it once, it gets caught in loops. So if you want to get totally out of the line command, then I would hit escape twice. Although if you hit the space bar, obviously it goes back in there like we were talking before. So that's a lot of this. Okay. If I draw something that I didn't want to do, so I make a mistake, there is something called an undo. So now the easiest way to undo are these little arrows right here. So if I hit undo, that was the last thing I drew. It'll undo the last thing I just did. Then it'll keep going. If I keep hitting undo, it keeps going back and undoing the last thing that I had drawn, right? See, look, it's just if I keep hitting it, it keeps undoing things. See? So it does everything though. Not just things that I draw, other commands that I have things doing, like if I turn on or toggle something on, it'll undo all of those things so that I can get back to a version of something that I've drawn. Okay. If I want to go forward after I've undone things, I can go forward too. Okay. Once I save this, then obviously I can't come and reload it or something. I can't come back and do this. Once you've overridden this and save it solidly, then it is what it is. Okay. So undo, erase, grid, and snap. Um, I've taught you I call it getting in and out of commands when I click this and then I hit escape. So I get into the command by clicking up here or by typing down here, line. I don't get very much into teaching you guys the textual commands because you're probably not. I don't have anybody that uses them. I have a whole list of the text commands if you want to learn them, so you can type them in there. But usually people want to just click. So anyway, you can type or get into a command, and then if I hit escape, that's getting out of the command. If I hit my space bar, I'm getting back into the command. Escape, get into another command, and so forth. That's getting in and out of commands. You know what the command line is. That will come into play. I want you to just know where it is and know to look at it. And we've been talking about absolute uh, what am I trying to say? Absolute coordinates. Losing my mind here. So I was telling you that this is showing my absolute coordinates of where my cursor is. But often when we draw in here, I just want to push this out there. When I draw another line, I'm going to draw this relative to this point. So this point, let's say this is 12 and a half, 1 in absolute. 12 and a half over on my x-axis, 1 up on my y-axis. That would be my absolute point there. And if I want to draw a line that gets up to here, I would then have to draw, figure out what that absolute location is. So there's 13, whatever. I'd count over and up and I'd come up with an absolute point, and I could draw from 12 and a half, 1 to, I don't know, 15, 3 and a half, whatever that is, right? Or if I draw in what we call relative coordinates, this now becomes my 0, 0 point, and I want to go 4 over and 3 up from this point. So usually when you draw, you're going to draw using what we call relative coordinates. So from this point, I want to go 4 over and 5 up.